And then the people over here on
I'll
this...
send it to them, yeah.
Yeah, you send it to them over there. Let me give you a...
May I answer that question directly? Because there have been costs incurred, not just emotional and spiritual costs, but financial costs.
Yeah.
And so, to the community that is watching online, please make a financial donation. Please make a financial donation to the defense of Splitting the Sky. And that can be done by going to the website of
splittingthesky.net. www.splittingthesky.net. Thank you. Let me give you a little update what's happened here the last couple of days. We went into court trying to, I had hoped to bring my colleague Anthony Hall, Professor Hall, and my sister Cynthia McKinney to testify on my behalf. I had hoped to bring Anthony Hall in to speak about the 40 days or so before last year's demonstration that we collaborated on, that I called him up and told him Bush was coming to town, that we had to arrest this guy, this war criminal. And I started sending documents to Tony here, and we started concurring. Tony and I have been working together for years, and we've collaborated on a number of different issues. We've even made law relative to indigenous struggles and the indigenous plights. So we've actually made law, new law, together. And so the two of us have a brilliant mind composition, and we have been able to, well, why not, right? Hey, if you don't love yourself, you don't got a good opinion of yourself. It's not going to work. Believe me. You got to love yourself, and you got to have a good opinion of yourself.
You're not a has-been. Anyway,
huh?
You said about the bee. What was that about the bee?
Yeah. What do you call a bee that can no longer produce honey? A used to be. Anyways, that was just for jokes. But anyways, so I had hoped Tony Hall had written a paper called The Bush League Justice that went viral on the internet before Bush came to town last year. And so I'd hoped to get him in. We actually got the paper in, but they wouldn't allow him to come in and qualify it. There was a lot of repression of any of my witnesses. Cynthia, I had hoped to get in there tomorrow morning, if it was still going, to basically discuss the hearings on the Hill of the lives of weapons of mass destruction, yes, right, and the push towards impeachment with Dennis Kucinich and a number of other congresspeople.
And, of course, torture with the consent of Rumsfeld.
Yes. And so to have her qualify the whole question of torture and the subsequent deaths and the impeachment processes, everything that was being conducted on Capitol Hill while she was still a congresswoman. But, of course, that's not going to happen. What they wanted to do is just contain it to the area that 4 policemen were there to testify against me. 2 asked to be excused, and the 2 that ended up testifying against me testified that I had come there on a couple of occasions threatening to arrest George Bush as a war criminal. But what they didn't say is that I had went there and instructed them to arrest this war criminal, according to the law. Well, they didn't listen to the law, and I told them if on the 3rd time they hadn't done that, I intended to break the line and attempt an arrest on George Bush. Now, funny enough, one of the cops that was giving testimony actually had the nerve to say, well, Mr. Boncory should be glad that we grabbed him and took him down because Bush's team was going to kill him. Well, actually, it may not be so funny at all, because they, for sure, Bush's secret securities and Blackwater snipers were there in full force. And yes, it could have been killed. Yeah. But I don't think they saved my life. Okay, so anyways, then the other officer just basically says, collaborates what he says. So what the Crown try to do is they try to keep the context of my charges to the charge of obstruction of a police officer to performance of their duty. I said I didn't obstruct nobody. They obstructed me. I instructed, not obstructed. I instructed them to do their job. They didn't do it. So anyways, then after they gave testimony, we were going to try to approach it from the defense side that I had the right to attempt a citizen's arrest. According to my understanding of the law relative to Immigrations and Refugees Protective Act that was laid out by the Lawyers Against War, and particularly Gail Davison, out of the chair out of Vancouver. So I tried to got up and gave testimony. My defense lawyer continued to grill me on everything that happened. I went in very detailed discussion about the tortures and the murders and the need to intervene. I spoke for hours at length and then came back on this morning. When I got back on, I came under cross-examination by the Crown. She was trying to trip me up, but I think, would you mind, what's your name again, brother?
Rick.
Rick, stand up for a second, buddy. All right, would you mind elaborating on that scenario there? What did you see?
Well, I just saw this rather young and intense Crown prosecutor laying all kinds of little traps on the floor, verbal traps and traps of intellectual thinking and traps of ambiguity, trying to get you to trip into them and contradict yourself, trying to get you to display some kind of opposition to what you'd said the day before, and essentially acting like the quintessential goddamn lawyer she was. Yeah. And it pissed me off because it wasn't allowing you to make your points or get any kind of clarity across whatsoever. Fair enough? Right. Does that sound good?
Good,
yeah.
Okay, so she did try to trip me up. I don't think I fell for much of anything at all. In fact, I continued to engage her, and I got my points across without compromising myself. Now, what is important to understand right here, a couple of, maybe 2 weeks ago, Tony and I took a trip from here all the way to Edmonton to meet with my lawyer. His name is Charles Davison. And when we went to Edmonton, Charles Davison said that they had the pretrial conference with Madam Prosecutor there and the judge. Now, I don't know if it's the same judge or not. But what happened was, while they had the pretrial conference, apparently the judge said to him, or no, actually said to the woman prosecutor, said to her, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. This guy's only looking for a soapbox. Right? Why don't you stay the charges? She said, well, I'm not going to stay the charges if he's willing to accept unlawful activities, then we're willing to give him community service. Well, I said, I already did my community service by trying to arrest George Bush for war crimes. That's right. And I said, hell no. I didn't almost get killed just to wimp out at the last minute to bite the cheese of opportunity. I'm sorry. Bring some more on. This is not going to get it. I didn't come here to compromise with nobody. Because the second I compromise and wimp out, I've compromised the future of my children. There's no compromise there. I love my children. I love my grandchildren. I love my family, and I love humanity.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's,